a little spoken word I've been working on to be performed somewhere soon. Time will tell. Empathy, empathy, wherefore art thou, empathy? Word for the day: confirmation bias. Definition: one's tendency and ability to create new beliefs that to perpetuate old beliefs, despite overt, objective, easily understood and perceived phenomenological aspects of their reality that clearly state otherwise. Used in a paragraph, confirmation bias is to moral cognitive dissonance as the trees are to a forest fire. And we, the people, i.e., the human race, are the trees. The fire: mental illness, homicide, domestic violence, substance abuse, suicide, a sadomasochistic tribalism kindled conflagration. Welcome to the jungle. She's on fire, and she isn't happy about it. Not one bit. So what's it going to be? You've got two buckets. One, life-giving and fire-extinguishing water, and the other, gasoline. This isn't a joke, it's an allegory. So what part are you going to play in this story? A fighter or fire's protagonist, or an antagonistic arsonist? Think. Have you ever heard of the term passive-aggressive? See what I did there? Passive aggression, acting with the intent to elicit a negative response with the forethought that if confronted, you'll deny that intent. Where this gets particularly complex is when this intent is subconscious, dissociated. Or if it's blindingly conscious, rationalizing an insatiable rage through demonizing angels the way you were once demonized for being an angel. That's a systemic rite of passage, the rite of passage to the copper top experience. See, it's all quite complex, to which our natural reflex is that which? Which? That historical which we see in the copper reflects, because you know it's shining. It reflects that reflex, and it feels like home, a home away from home. And there it is, as it was, that sinking sink, that sick sink, that docking with the matrix sink. Not green binary numbers, mind you, but that social matrix tightly threaded together by the collective ego. Its fragility in particular. Frail from the fear of our past wrongs, ours and those for whom cared for us. It's our dissociative endearment to those we need to make perfect that perpetuates and augments our own moral imperfections. Our God and our devil, our force and our Lord Vader, the positive and the negative. In The Dissociative Mind, Elizabeth F. Howell, Ph.D., quotes W.R.D. Fairbairn: "It's easier to be a sinner in heaven than a saint in hell. For in the former there is hope. There is hope in convincing ourselves we are the bad element in a good situation, be it a dysfunctional family or leading up to and through Hitler's Germany. Where is the hope for the good in an inescapable bad situation? It's within the magic hat of dissociation, evolution's gift to humans, an integral part of the human condition that makes us master magicians. The spells we cast a web of deceit, spindling a net not unlike the internet. The internet's like a gun, it doesn't kill people. People kill people. Fake news kills people. It exonerates hate. The hate that seals people's fate. Stop and look around before it's too late. First they came for the Native Americans, then the African, then the Jew, and you're looking in the mirror like, phew, as long as it isn't you. Just a little melanin, but Judaism? That tribalism's hitting a little close to home. Don't stare in that mirror too long, your nose is growing. Your nose might grow, my apologies. It might be the only thing you can grow on your own. How did that cotton get so high? Yet the thread of cannabis gets so low. The threatening thread. Are you afraid that your fear of that threatening thread might be a bit frayed? The ego in the mirror is like, frayed not. But don't stare too closely. Life can quickly spiral into a complex prison. A prison complex. Complexly producing complexes in the Jungian sense, and the young and the old, the Carl and the Freud. Evolution is a sage, and it knew that there's no more convincing a lie than the one we believe. And thus the human condition was born, screaming, wailing, crying, and hasn't stopped to take a breath and get its bearings since. See, the problem is evolution didn't have a mirror, metaphorically. And it didn't have the forethought of social media and condoms, shared custody and divorce. Hell, marriage isn't firmly planted. Roofies and Ritalin, Bentleys and Bugattis, Coke and Pepsi. Right makes might. Evolution's like, what the fuck is this shit? But might makes right. Oh boy, does she know that one. And passive aggressive can level that playing field real quick. You want to see a bully's knees buckle, hit him where it hurts in his fragile ego. Meanwhile, on the other side of that two-headed coin, on the other side of Schadenfreude, if you want to help someone transcend their trauma, you cannot speak only to their conscious mind. For their conscious mind ain't got time for that. I mean, really, whose does? You've got to speak to the trauma that's been sequestered but not silenced, certainly not destroyed. And it speaks passive-aggressive, fluidly, with flow. Trauma sequestration is a sequela of its lack of assimilation. Evolution mistakes drama to be trauma's resolution. And all the king and queen's aggressions couldn't put Humpty back together again. I'm going to do that one again real quick because I messed it up. Trauma sequestration is a sequela of its lack of assimilation. Evolution mistakes drama to be trauma's resolution. And all the king and queen's aggressions couldn't put Humpty back together again. But acceptance? Acceptance is the crack in the armor of the trauma to which the defensive drama becomes untenable, tenably undefensible, be it by an able 10 or an unable 0, like Neo. To be effective, acceptance must be able to flow or to crash. It must communicate with the unaccepted, the dissociated, the part screaming, "Why so serious?" extraneously, but internally weeping, "Why can't anyone be serious? Why can't anybody be sincere? Why can't anyone hear me? Why can't anybody see me? Am I not pretty?" Sounds like petty, right? But who perpetuates the petty? Isn't the one you've addicted to the concept of pretty? The conceptual fallacy of a reality in which lays an objectively definable pretty. First and foremost, pretty is a highly subjective word. And if someone thinks you aren't, that's their opinion, and they should just shut the F up, period. And that opinion won't be everybody's, I can promise you that. That being said, the problem with being a pretty girl is, it's not your fault. It's society's fault. It's the idea that pretty can be defined's fault, the particularly patriarchal idea. So society gives you the power without asking you if you want it, and then tries to strip it, pun intended, from you for the rest of the time you're given it. It isn't your fault, but society will do everything in its power to convince you that it is. Arguably that everything is. They will tell you this under the guise of gaslights flickering as they try to extinguish the flames within your mind and heart. It isn't your fault. It isn't your mama's fault either, though obviously if you'd had another you might have had more faults, thus less things being ostensibly your fault. Obscenely, ostensibly, fictionally even. And it isn't your fault, or even arguably your mother's, that she may or may not envy that which she sees within you, that she may or may not have had. She may have never had the opportunity. She may or may not have had the exact same genetics or equal genetics, or maybe she had better or worse, for better or worse. Again, none of this is in any way, shape, form, or fashion, regardless of shape, form, or fashion, your fault. Definitively, factually, period. Well, evolution doesn't know the insta either, the insta-mista, but he can get her 1 or 100 or 100,000 likes. And those likes are like a dopamine mainline. There's no gram like the Instagram. Add a dash of passive aggression, a sprinkle of hate to make this digital mate seemingly familiar. In sadism and masochism, live happily ever after. You're looking for a happy ending? Well, hell, you got it. It's a deep subjugate, ain't it? But does it have to be? Does it have to be subjugating? I thoroughly don't believe so. And seeing as how I seem to have utterly and irreparably broken my dissociation, try as I may, I can't not see. Try as I may, I can't not see. It's that hopeful belief that gets me up in the morning. Rise and shine.